then we move from there to conventional morality. And in conventional morality, we have an emphasis on good interpersonal relationships. So children at this stage are usually, it's just before they enter their teens. Stage 3, first 3 stages roughly correspond to Piaget's earlier stage in moral development. So children at this age focus on motives. So if someone's motives were good, then you have to consider that in determining whether their behavior is bad. So in that case, they may say that Heinz didn't do anything wrong because his motives were about, helping his wife, and so he wasn't wrong. Or they may say, well, the pharmacist, he was just being mean, so he had bad motives, therefore it's okay that he had the drug stolen from him. So, in this case, very, very more nuanced approach to making moral decisions. Okay? And then stage 4 is what we'd call the law and order stage. And for the first time now, the concern is for society as a whole, as opposed to just how we handle interpersonal conflicts.
Right.
And so now people who are usually well into their teens finally understand the function of laws in helping society function smoothly. So actually most people in the world will stop at stage 4 and go no further. And in fact, in primitive cultures, it's unusual to see someone advance past stage 3, simply because in very primitive, like tribal cultures, there's not a lot of dilemmas that challenge stage 3 morality.
You've got smaller societies, family units, things like that. You don't have to deal with, the complexities. And a lot of times, throughout history, both with the family units and with the church, you have a dogmatic authority that decides for you what's right and wrong, and there's just no opportunity to question it. And the situations that arise that would challenge it, the authorities already have the power and tend to squelch it. So it took a lot of kind of free-thinking, rebellious people to continually challenge those things in order to even get us to the point where we could get to stage 4.
Yes. And there's another point I was going to make about this stuff, and now I lost it. Okay. We'll just go on to post-conventional morality. I'll come back to that in a minute. Post-conventional morality moves on to stage 5, where we have a social contract and individual rights. And in this stage, there's a recognition that different groups in society can have different values, but that certain basic rights need to be protected. And that if we're going to make a change, there's got to be a democratic process that we use to make those changes. So the focus here is on creating some kind of smoothly functioning society that's based on this concept of certain basic rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, for example. So there's that. And then finally we get to stage 6, which is about universal principles. And these are this stage it defines the principles that we use to achieve justice. And in this case, we define justice as something that's based on equal respect for everyone. An example of this would be a majority would not get to vote on restricting the rights of a minority.
Right.
And
if you all got together and decided you want to enslave the atheists, we've already set up a system where your rights don't include the violation of ours.
Yeah, and I guess my analogy here is that if you get to stage 5, or even up in stage 4, 4 or 5, and your focus is on a smoothly functioning society, well, a smoothly functioning society is not necessarily a just society.
Right.
So, for example, Nazi Germany was very smoothly functioning.
Yeah.
But no one would argue that that was a just framework for anything.
You can have a society that operates very efficiently, cleanly, and has no real regard for individual human rights.
Right. So the post-conventional morality, and in particular stage 6, concerns itself with making sure that we not only have a smoothly functioning society, but we have the underlying principles that take into account each person's point of view in that, so that, and I guess my my analogy that I would use here is how our court system functions when reviewing whether a law is considered constitutional or not.
Right.
So we can, the justice system can overturn a law that, for example, like you said, if we voted to enslave a certain group of people, the Supreme Court, it wouldn't even get to the Supreme Court because our courts would overturn that.
Yeah, I would hope
instantly.
That we're relatively sane on that. We're talking a little bit about morals today. Where do they come from if you're not religious, and perhaps where do they come from if you are? And actually, I'd say that's the case. That there's this kind of illusion going on that your morals are coming from some authority, when really what we're talking about is sets of rules that have been modified over time as society's changed and as they became more complex. Humans have been immoral throughout our history, but that's only if you judge them based on the moral understanding that we have now.
Yeah.
And my personal point of view is, because people say, well, you don't have any absolute morals, it's all relative. My view is one that I think Dennis LeBay helped kind of formulate, which is the idea that for any given situation, and we'll just go ahead and admit right off the bat that everything is situational, that you have to consider everything in context. But for a given situation, that there's a finite possibility of actions to take, which means that some of them are going to be better than others. Some of them may be tied. But somewhere out there, in a particular situation, there is an action which best meets the goals and principles that we've set up. And that's what I would say is the closest thing to an absolute morality. And I think, what I'd like to think, is that over the course of human history, we have been gradually progressing mostly towards that. We've taken some steps back in areas on occasion. But I think, and I don't think we'll ever get there. I don't want to oversimplify this to the, if we just keep working, we'll finally get to the best moral system we could ever have. I don't think that's the case. But to constantly strive for better, I think, is the goal. And hopefully we're mostly doing it.